Okay. Okay, going live. Give it a minute for people to hop on. We're going to be talking about the energy of reciprocity. So thank you for those who are joining on the live or on the replay. And we're going to be talking about what reciprocity really means when we're talking about relationships here. So I'm just going to give it another second. And later on, we're also going to be doing, hi, Brian. Thank you for joining. We're also going to be doing a little mini clearing too at the end after I talk about a couple points here. So if you can stay for that, that'll be awesome. Thank you for those joining on IG. And otherwise, we'll be getting started here shortly. Okay, so hope you guys are doing well, and we're going to be, this is going to be a good discussion. I'm actually really looking forward to this. Okay. It's really quite fascinating. It's an interesting subject when you even think about reciprocity. I was looking up some info from a psychological standpoint, because reciprocity takes place a lot, especially in business, where like there's exchange, right? There's exchange of money and information. We kind of accept it as normal because reciprocity is about both parties, or all the parties who are involved, receiving some sort of mutual benefit. Right? So when you're purchasing something, when you're getting a service from somebody, you are getting something that is important to you, and the other person's getting compensated for that, right? We see this happening all the time, sales and marketing. This is the reason why, people thrive or survive and thrive, during times even when things may be like a downturn in the economy, but yet things are happening that's mutually benefiting everyone so that civilization can keep going. Now, when I work with my clients, reciprocity is viewed totally differently when we're talking about individual relationships, because what I often hear are statements like, I'm always expected to be there for other people, but when I need them, they're not around. People see me as the helper or caregiver. I have to do X so that so-and-so is not going to be mad at me, or it doesn't feel like things are 50-50. I hear that a lot. I hear 50-50 a lot. And I give way more than that. So why is that happening? Okay. So when you take a look at just even these statements, simply sensing the energy off these statements, you can kind of feel like that, the weight of constraint and obligation. And one of the big paradigm shifts that take place for people when they begin to question why they may not exactly be happy or feel fulfilled is the transition from obligation to desire. So instead of having to be where you are or with the people that you're with, you're choosing to be there because you want to. It's actually energetically in alignment with you. Hey, Ramon, thank you for joining. So the reason why this is a difficult shift to make is that some have trouble discerning the difference between what they feel obligated to do and what they desire. And that's because they think that the obligation is what they want. So let me give you my own personal example. So you probably know by now, if you've watched any of my lives, I grew up in a religious cult, and around 21 to 22 years old, I was having this thing where I'm like, I need to get out. I want to like live my own life. I just wanted to be out. And so I had, I was thinking about like creating this plan, right, to leave. But the thing was, I was obligated to my family. I felt very obligated to my friends, all the people who I've surrounded myself with my entire life. And so I chickened out, essentially. I didn't see it as chickening out. I saw it as me making a smart decision at the time. And so I decided to stay. Right? So side lesson here, especially when it comes to something that you feel obligated to, understand that loyalties can also be misguided. Okay, so because you can be loyal to an abusive relationship. You could be loyal to a high mind control situation or environment or a belief system that could have a large degree of control over you. So just side note on that when it comes to loyalty. But going back to my point, I made the decision that I did to kind of stay the course with the religious cult that I was in. And that, as a result, was the foundation of a lot of the other decisions that I made because of the obligation that I felt. And that led me eventually, years later, to the rock bottom that I needed to hit, which was not a bad thing. We all know that rock bottoms are the beginnings of awakenings, right? Which we can have more than one. So back to my point, I could not separate obligation from what I really wanted, which was freedom. And freedom means that you embrace and own your own sovereignty. You call your own shots. Obligation means that you're morally and legally bound to something, which implies commitment. But again, you could be committed or loyal to something that may not be very healthy to you, or may not give you the reciprocity that you're looking for. And so it's interesting when we talk about obligation, it's an interesting component of reciprocity because of how people define moral excellence. And what I have found when I do energy clearings on people is that people in general need to prove that they are good people. It's almost like they have this inherent feeling like it's not possible, or maybe because they were treated a certain way, they don't feel like they're good, and therefore they're trying to make up for something in the past, and they do all these different things that they think that they need to do in order to prove that they're good people. It's kind of the whole thing where if I follow the rules, if I do good things, and these are all the different good things that I'm doing, there's going to be some prize or reward. So whether that could be something tangible, right? Like money or some other sort of prize, or long-term, if you have a belief system like you're going to go to heaven, if I do all these good things, I'm going to go to heaven, right? So it's really interesting when it comes to reciprocity and the obligation that people feel and what they end up doing because of the obligation. So here's the thing. When people get really, really truthful about how they interact with others, they can often see that they do things because of eventually what they expect to receive in return. And it becomes a basis for what ends up becoming pretty transactional. And then they kind of wonder, well, how come there isn't like the emotional substance that I really want to be there? Why is that lacking? Why are the threads of connectedness not there where, there's permanence and people end up going from person to person, place to place to find some sort of safety or security or a feeling of home, when really when they're invested in someone or something, it's like a one and done type of deal. So it's really interesting when it comes to this. So here's a couple of things that I would suggest to keep in mind when it comes to thinking on reciprocity with any of your relationships. And it doesn't matter what type of relationships we're talking about. Maybe outside of, the whole parent-child, because obviously there is an obligation there, plus a desire. Oftentimes there's a desire too. So the first thing I would say is ask yourself, why are you in that relationship to begin with? Okay, and you're going to get different answers depending on who you're thinking about. Okay, so are you choosing to be there because you want to, or do you feel that you have to be? For those that you feel obligated to be there for, you'll have to make the decision if you're going to continue to expend a particular type of energy in an unhealthy way. Not saying that you necessarily have to cut people off entirely, but you may just want to step back and reassess. Do you feel drained after being with this person? Do they feel that they continually take from you, or are things always about them? The second thing I want you to ask yourself is, what are your expectations of the relationship? Does the other party even know what your expectations are? Or do we carry around like the unwritten, uncommunicated ones and then just expect other people to read our minds? Because oftentimes that happens. We oftentimes have people who, who just, they expect certain things of us or vice versa, and we just think that they should know. And what I tend to find is that people usually expect others to behave or make decisions the way that they would. I see this a lot, especially with empaths. Since they feel so much and care so much, empaths tend to invest a lot in other people. And then when it comes their turn to receive, because they have a need, then they kind of go, okay, and there's no one around, right, to fulfill that need. They're like, okay, well then, am I being used? Am I being taken advantage of? That's something that I often see a lot. And so whether or not you're an empath, it's important to become aware of the expectations of others and understand that other people have their own filters. Okay, they're not going to come from the same level of consciousness as you 100% of the time. They may not even share the same standards as you, right? So that's something to think about too. So if you let go of the expectations that others are just like you and will reciprocate the way that you do, then you're going to bring yourself a lot of relief. Okay, so which brings me to point number 3, is that when others do give to you or reciprocate towards you, they're doing so from their lens, their past experiences, which is actually the basis for, we often hear about like the love languages, right? I forgot who the author of that book was, but the different categories and things. So certain words and actions are going to be more meaningful to people depending on who's giving and who's receiving. So let me give you another example. My husband will buy cards and he'll write like little notes in there, and he'll do it like on random occasions. Sometimes if he's like saying thank you or like congratulating me on something, and it's very unexpected, which is really sweet. But I will admit, I'm not a big card person, but then I learned that his mom does that. And so that's something that is meaningful for him growing up in his family, and what they used to do and how they would communicate something that was very thoughtful. So for me, on the other hand, I love choosing personalized gifts for people. That's something that I have always done since I was little. And so I would spend all this time and getting personalization, for gifts and things. And then I would be saddened if my husband wasn't as thrilled about the gifts as I was. Or if he were to buy me a gift, I would feel a little disappointed because it would either be last minute or he didn't spend enough time thinking about it like the way that I did. But then he said something to me, which I was like, okay, I had to really think about that. He said, the gift isn't about you as the giver, it's about the person who is receiving. So I realized, and this is a big aha moment, I was ego tripping on the fact that I could choose awesome gifts, right? And like actually wanting a little bit of recognition for that. And I had to really unlearn. I saw that I was actually identifying with that. And I had to understand that if I'm going to give, it's simply because I want the other person to receive, and that's it. So if you're in a relationship with someone and you feel like the reciprocity is off, the question I would ask then is, what does the evidence show you? So I'm not saying go on a witch hunt. What I'm saying is just being truthful about what's actually taking place. So let's say, your friend doesn't call you back. Does that mean that your friend is never there for you? Let's say, your husband isn't listening to you when you're wanting to vent about something or explain something. Does it mean that he never ever listens to you? Is he not pulling his weight with chores? Is he really more decompressing in a different way than you? Okay, and I'm throwing things out there. These are things that I have heard and talked about with my clients. It's really fascinating, by the way, when it comes to how men and women decompress. It's very, oftentimes, I'm going to say oftentimes, it's very different, which means that their boundaries are very different. Men and women tend to decompress with each other and like gab about something. Men tend to kind of either go off on their own, like sometimes they make game or do something like that, when really they're just decompressing. And like a female will look at that and be like, you're wasting your time. So it's fascinating with that. So these are actual examples that I'm sharing with you that I've talked about with clients. But when it comes to telling the truth about what is actually happening, sometimes we tend to kind of go with your perception based upon the feeling that you have at the moment. And so if things really were as bad as you might be feeling they are, your log of evidence should be near well damning to say that the other person is not giving at all, okay? Or that you're the giver 90 to 100% of the time. So be truthful about what is happening, not just how you're feeling in the moment. And then last but not least, say what it is that you want. If you need someone to listen, you need someone to give you a hug, you need someone to share a meal with you, you cannot expect people to read your mind with the list of all your evolving needs at the time. When you say what you want, it actually gives the important people in your life the opportunity to meet it. I'm going to say that again. When you say what you want, it gives the important people in your life an opportunity to meet it. So it's interesting because I was never really brought up to voice as much. And it took me almost 40 years to actually begin to do this and to feel okay with it. And now it's like when I do, I typically get what I want either sooner or later. So it's really interesting how that plays out. And if you need to, you can also rehearse your request. Take your phone, practice in a recorder, play it back to yourself, see if even later on that you feel like you need to make the request, okay? Sometimes when we're really, really needy, the request can sound like whining. So, so that's why we might want to practice. We might want to practice the timing, the delivery. Present yourself with esteem because you're asking for something that is actually showing that you demonstrate that you care about yourself. Okay, so just keep these points in mind. The last thing that I want to make a side note of is that if you feel like you're giving way too much, then you probably are. Okay, and let's see here. Okay, so just Ryan, I'm reading your quick comment here. I do really battle after the fifth or more time to ask something and still seeing no one is doing what I'm asking, feeling like I'm not respected. Okay, I'm gonna get to that here in a second. I didn't write about this, but this is a really great point that you're bringing up. Okay, so I'm gonna finish my other thought and then I'm gonna get to what you're saying, Ryan. So if you feel like you're giving too much, like I said, you probably are. That isn't necessarily on the people who are taking or receiving from you though, okay? You can't even say like, because I hear this a lot too, well, people expect me to do that. You know, like I'm doing so much, but then it's like, oh, well, people expect me to do that. Are they really? So here's the thing, you set the precedent for how much people will take. So if you don't have the extra to give, or you don't want to stay in a cycle of spinning your wheels for others, then you need to set a boundary, okay? And it's never, ever too late to do that. So that's really, really important, especially for empaths. If you feel like you're giving too much, you probably need to kind of step back and conserve your energy more, but that has everything to do with boundaries. Energetic boundaries, verbal boundaries, physical boundaries, those I'm going to say is a big part of the reason why people have issues with reciprocity to begin with. Okay, so going back to what you were saying, Ryan, so you say guilty of saying what I want and expecting my family to remember the things I've asked. I do really battle. Okay, so one, I would say let's take that guilt off for you. So I'll include that in the clearing. You don't necessarily have to feel guilty for saying what you want. You know, if other people are not necessarily remembering, then that's something I would say to be talking about. What is it that you want them to? What is it that you want them to remember? And, you know, I know in talking with you, there's, you know, like different scenarios, especially like with kids and things like that, which I can totally understand. So here's the thing, you know, when we talked about expectations, when I was mentioning releasing expectations that other people are going to be the same as you. You know, I'm not talking about not expecting people to do their chores or not expecting other people like in the home to carry their weight. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more about I'm expecting other people to fill a particular need for me, right? Because that's usually where people kind of get tripped up a lot, is where we're expecting other people to fulfill a need, and that maybe might not have been communicated. So Ryan, when you're talking about things that are being asked of, I would be asking, what specific things are we talking about? Are we talking about, you know, like having the kids do a particular thing? Or are we talking about having an expectation, saying what it is, like, I need someone to talk to right at this moment, or I need someone to kind of just listen to me as I voice my concern, right? That's what I'm talking about in particular. There are two different things here that I'm specifying. Okay, good. I'm glad that you see what I'm talking about or referring to here. So the thing is, when it comes to the respect part, okay, because now you're pinpointing a particular energy when you say if you're feeling disrespected. People are going to reflect back to you how you are feeling about yourself. So if you voice something that you want done, whether that is, you know, telling the kids, okay, here's a chore that I need you to do, or whether you're talking about expressing a need that you have, such as, you know, I need you to sit down and listen to me as I talk about a concern, both need to come from the place of I respect myself. This is the reason why I'm voicing this, because I respect me and the environment that I am in. And when you come from that particular energy, that is what is felt, that is unspoken. So the receiver, if you can voice it, right, at the throat chakra, with the sense of self-respect that you have, which comes from that solar plexus area and the heart area, then that will come out and land in a very specific way to the receiver. So if you end up voicing something out of mere frustration, anger, or fear, then that is what ends up distorting the message. And that's when the translation can get lost, or that's where it could go through one ear and out the other, because there's a lot of noise with the words that are being expressed. Does that make sense? So if it's not necessarily coming from an energy that is pleasant, whole, with integrity, coming from a place of concern, caring, or love, pick any of those particular energies, then the message as it's being received is going to land in a way where it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And then they can continue to process, versus it kind of washing over someone or landing in a way where they're misinterpreting the message. And there's other issues with that too sometimes, depending on the person, especially if the person's really wounded, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But this is what I'm talking about. So before you express what it is, check in with the energy that's going to be emanated when you say what it is that you are going to say. And then that is how you can get the communication across. It's so interesting because with communication, one of my favorite quotes is that, you know, the biggest thing about communication is we believe that it has taken place. Oftentimes, there's a lot that gets lost there. There's a lot that needs to be clarified oftentimes. I know my husband's really, really good at this, because if I'll say something, he wants clarification a lot. And, you know, and I used to kind of be really frustrated because I used to have such a hard time explaining. I used to have a hard time expressing and explaining, and I had to get really, really good at it, you know, so I'm glad he kind of forced me in, you know, in that direction, because now I can clarify and say things in different ways where now the other person can understand. And so I know we're kind of we're crossing the bridge here over to communication, but when it comes to reciprocity, if you want to feel understood, you want to have an emotional need met, the communication really needs to be very clear. which takes a lot of courage in order to do that. And so when you end up putting yourself out there with the words, very specific, be very succinct, be very, very direct, then there's less and less chance for things to get lost in translation. Okay, so if we want that reciprocity, we have to be willing to be able to look at the energy that we're emitting and how we're choosing to deliver that. Okay, so really good point. I'm so glad that you brought that up, Ryan, when it comes to this. And then we're going to do an energy clearing here now. So I'm going to walk you through this. If you haven't done this with me before, just go ahead and follow along. I'm going to be very explicit with the meditation and where we're going to be going through the chakras. And we're also going to be taking care of that circle of reciprocity through the heart chakra, through the arms. This is where we can really adjust things so we can energetically receive, as well as be able to give with that courage. A lot of times people want to receive, but they're also afraid to give. And you can't receive without giving first. Okay? So that both areas, the masculine and feminine through the arms, need to be clear. All right. So I'm going to, oh, you're very, very welcome, Ryan. Yes. And you are getting really, really great at that. So really proud of you. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the clearing. And so if you can stay through everything, the whole thing, that'd be great. And this is also going to be here on my IGTV, YouTube, and Facebook. So you can always repeat the clearing. And let me know how you feel afterwards. Okay, so go ahead and get centered in your seat. You can close your eyes. It turns your attention inward. Easy breath in and out, longer on the exhale. That signals your body that you're safe. Relaxing your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. And then I want you to imagine from the base of your spine, you're going to send that grounding cord down into the center of the earth. That grounding cord can be as big as a softball. It could be as wide as your hips, whichever, it doesn't matter. If you feel like you need to release a lot today, you might want to make it a little wider. And you'll see, sense, and feel when you get to the center of the earth. You might feel like a warmth, lighter, higher vibration. And then from the bottoms of your feet, bring in your awareness there. Imagine you're sending tree roots down into the earth, spreading those out super far and wide. Imagine like you're going out 200 to 300 miles. Almost like you're kind of wrapping around the sides of the earth. And then you're absorbing the earth's energy as it comes up through the bottoms of your feet, going up through the ankles, the lower legs, upper legs, hips, meeting at the grounding cord, and then circling back down. So feel the circulation of the energy through the lower half of your body. And then we're going to check in at the root chakra. The root chakra is right at the perineal area, lower bladder area. And imagine like you're in the center of an onion, and you know how an onion has layers around it. We're going to go out to the 25th layer. So not that you have to count out every individual layer, but just imagine like you're going to go out to that layer. You know exactly where it is, and you're going to pull that into the center. It's big energy here. Good. And then you're going to drop that down the grounding cord. Good. All right, so what we're doing here is we're actually bringing in the things that kind of worry you, concern you, keep you up at night, make you nervous, fearful, and we're just getting rid of that down the grounding cord to really fully ground you. Because when you're in fear, that actually kind of that takes your spirit out of your body, and now it has all this room for other people's stuff to get in. We don't want that. So now we're going to connect to universal energy. So go ahead and imagine way above the crown of your head, you know where the center of the universe is? Bring that universal energy down to your creative rings. Okay, so there's a stack of creative rings above the crown of your head. They almost look like wedding bands stacked one on top of another. These represent your goals, dreams, desires, intentions, the things that you came here in this lifetime to create. What we're doing is pulling that universal energy through the creative rings, so that way you can recalibrate those things to your highest and best interest. We're infusing those with universal energy. And then we're going to go down to right above the top of your head at the crown chakra. Go out to the third layer. We're going to clear needing permission to have reciprocity in all of our relationships. So pulling in that third layer to the center and release. So it's going down your pranic channel, down the vertebrae into the grounding cord. So releasing needing that permission. Oftentimes we wait for the green light. We wait for the okay from somebody else, and we don't need that. We are sovereign energetic beings. So give yourself that permission. Now we're going to go down to the third eye, go out to the third layer. And we're going to expand that third layer as we clear some limiting mindsets, beliefs, thoughts around our relationships or how we are in relationships. So such as, I'm always the one giving, never receiving. No one is ever there for me. People don't love me the way that I love them. I will never receive the love that I have been looking for. I don't feel connected or safe with anyone. I cannot trust other people, or other people are not to be trusted. That's a generational belief, by the way. And I don't deserve to have reciprocal relationships. I should only be the support person or the other person there caring for other people. So let's pull that in. That's really big stuff. Pull in that third layer to the center and down. Good. And then at the third eye, go to the sixth layer, number 6. And we're going to clear other people's perceptions as you just only being there for them. Okay, so pulling that into the center and down. Good. This really big energy here in the third eye, by the way. Going down to the throat, third layer. Let's clear around fear for asking what it is that you want, asking for the reciprocity, that are lacking that courage. So pulling in that layer to the center and down. Third layer again at the throat. There's some anger here too for like not being able to express. So let's pull that in. And remember what I talked about with the communication. If we have fear and anger, especially in the throat, our messages or requests will not land correctly. So that's why we need to pull that in and down, releasing that anger from the throat. You might even feel like a lump in your throat, or you might feel like a constriction for some of you. Okay, and that's really normal when we're releasing, I should say. And going down to the heart, third layer. So judgment of self and others. So let's pull that in. Because especially when we kind of feel like, oh, so-and-so is not giving to me, so-and-so is not there for me, we tend to judge them too. And all judgment, self-judgment. Okay, so pulling that in, down. Good. And then third layer, again at the heart, fear of vulnerability. Let's pull that in. And then down. Good. There is a little bit of guilt here. Third layer, let's pull that in. A little bit of guilt. And down. No need to hold on to some past mistakes with people, by the way. Okay? A new day, you can always start again. There's nothing wrong with that. Going down to the solar plexus, so going out to the third layer. So any people pleasing here, the martyr type of energy, that's really high. Let's bring that into the center and then down. Good. Excellent. And then third layer, any difficulty with the weak boundaries. Okay, so especially if you feel like you give too much. So let's pull in that third layer with the weak boundaries, unhealthy boundaries. We want firm, strong, very clear boundaries. So pulling that in and then release. Good. Excellent. And going down to the sacral, second layer, anger. Anger up to rage. Okay, for not feeling like things are, I don't want to say even, but feeling like you get fulfillment from the relationships that you're in. Let's pull that in. Second layer, the sacral, and then down. Good. And then second layer at the sacral too, right? So the sacrum, we're at the hips here, between the navel and hips, shame. Second layer, let's pull that in to the center. And then down. Good. Nice. And then going down to the root, expand your third layer. So we're back here at the perineal area, that lower bladder. Expand the third layer. We're going to clear fears here. So fears of rejection, fears of abandonment, fears of loss, fear of not being valued, fear of being unlovable, fear of failure. That's an interesting one for reciprocity. Okay, so like failing at relationships, fear of not pleasing others, and fear of commitment. Okay. Hi, Christina. We're in the middle of a clearing, so feel free to join. Okay, so we're pulling this in, all of the third layer to the center. Okay, so we're pulling in all of these fears. We're at the root chakra, and then we're going to bring this down to the grounding cord. So go ahead and send all of that down. See, sense, and feel too in your body what this feels like as you are sending these fears down into the grounding cord. Okay, remember the earth transmutes this, so we're not sending anything bad down into the earth. And if you're just joining now on any of my platforms here, this is all going to be recorded, so you will be able to do this later. Okay, and now we have universal and earth's energy mixing here at the root. And then we're going to be bringing this mixture up the front of the spine, so going past the sacral, the solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown, rings, and then up and over your field. Okay, so as it comes up and over your field, like paint over a balloon, okay, this is all going to immerse through all the layers of your aura. And I want you to focus on the third layer as it's coming down over your field. This is where there's a lot of effort and struggle. So if you feel like you've been really efforting, struggling, getting what you need from relationships, feeling like you have to force relationships, really ground this layer as it comes down over your field and goes past your legs, attaching at the grounding cord below your feet. Okay, we're completing your field here as we clear through every layer. And now we're going to take care of that circle of reciprocity, right? As we've been talking about reciprocity for like the first half hour. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the energies of your heart, your throat, third eye, crown, and the creative rings. We're going to compress that, and it goes through your right shoulder. So as you're seeing, sensing, feeling in your body through this, goes into the right shoulder, into the right arm. Remember, the right arm is the masculine side. This is the side where we give, we do, we act. And for some of you, there's a hesitancy here just because you're afraid that you're not going to receive, but you can't receive if you don't give freely. Okay? No strings attached. So really breathe through this right arm, if you will, like sending light, almost like you're kind of cleaning out the pipes. Okay? Really breathe through it. And as that energy gets to the right wrist, you can put your fingertips together like you're holding a softball. And you are moving the energy from the right fingertips and palm over to the left side. Okay, the left side's the feminine side. This is a side that is receiving. Oftentimes, this part is blocked, and then this is the reason why people do not receive what they want. So open it up, starting at the wrist, opening up, moving that energy through, breathing through this arm entirely. It feels like really like both lower and upper left arm feels like really sluggish. Just really breathe through this. I wonder if you guys can feel that too. So breathing through here into the left shoulder, and then that energy drops down into the chest, comes and wraps around the front and back of the heart. Really making sure that your heart stays open. If your heart closes down, guess what? The arms are going to close down. Okay, so breathing through the front and back of the heart, up front and back of the throat, so you can speak freely too. Up front and back of the third eye, releasing those limiting and lack mindsets around your relationships. And then up through the crown and up and over your field. Good. Okay, excellent. All right, so let's check in with cords, energetic cords. So for the group here, those watching even on the replay, there's 5 at the root. So see, sense, and feel at the root chakra. Okay, and you're going to deplug. So release 5. You can do all 5 cords at the same time, or you can do them one at a time. Doesn't matter. So release, send it back. So from the root chakra, we're releasing cords here. When people cord to you at your root, it's because they feel safe. They can't ground themselves, so they try to ground through you, which can feel like your energy is being siphoned off, and you're feeling like you're having to give, not sure why. They're having a bad day. Now you're having a bad day because you're sharing it. Okay, so release those. And we're also going to release at the solar plexus, at the stomach area. So there's 2 here. See, sense, and feel around your stomach area. So if you need to close your eyes, you're going to deplug, like taking the plug out of the wall socket, and send it back. So go ahead, and it's just going right back to who these cords belong to. If you need assistance with these, let me know. Okay, if you're having a hard time with any of these, I'll be reading the comments and I can help you with that. And then there's also one at the heart. Okay, so see, sense, and feel at the heart center, and deplug, send it back. Good. Okay, good. All right, let me know if anyone needs help with the cords at all, or let me know if you had a question and wanted me to check in on something. I haven't done that one. I haven't done that in a while. So let me know if there's something here regarding reciprocity that you wanted me to check in on. I'll just go ahead and answer that right now. So anyone, I'll check here on my comments from the different platforms. Let me see. Is everyone okay with the cords? Okay, good, good. Cords looking good. Excellent. All right, anybody else? Nope, that looks good. So anyone have any questions, anything that you want me to check in on real quick? I do have some time left. I'd be happy to do that. So anyone have any questions, anything you want me to check in on? I know I haven't done that in a while. So let me know. or if you had questions or anything that you even felt during the clearing itself. Was there anything significant, anything that stood out to you, or any questions that you have or you want me to vibrationally check in on, reciprocity wise, especially with a particular relationship? Let me see. Anybody on here? Nope, that was good. Good, good, good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for joining. Good. Okay. I attempted psychic work yesterday and connected to some people, but I'm concerned I didn't disconnect from all of them. Is that something you can check in on today or another? Yes. So, how did you disconnect? And I'm gonna tell you one other way that you can check too. Can you tell me, Ryan, how you disconnected? Because you can really disconnect. So disconnecting, I'll say this, like right off the top of my head, disconnecting is everything to do with your intentions also. So the moment you set the intention, that's already going to affect you energetically, and unless someone else is corded to you at the time. So, and then ran out. Yes. Okay, good. So the other thing too that you can, and this is more to do with the, okay, good. This has more to do with the cords too, just to see if you are, there's two things. So one, if you want, okay. So one, if you want, you can take your hand and go above, you're starting at the crown. And you can kind of feel going down all the way to where where the perineal lower bladder is. This is where you can kind of feel too if other people are according to you. So if you just kind of feel, and you can feel like when there's a density or a heaviness that you come across, right? When you if you feel like you can't really intuit with cords, like where I see them for the group collectively, you can actually feel in the front of your body if you feel they're corded. And if you feel like you're kind of stuck, that's where you can deplug and send it back. Okay. The other thing is, if you are wondering if you're corded to somebody else and you're siphoning off someone else's energy, then that's where you can, if you even just close your eyes and kind of see if there's cords coming out from you. Not that you necessarily have to know who they're going to, but you might. But this is something I do even like with my clients and students. Like I will, I'll close my eyes, just kind of center myself and see, do I have cords that are going out that don't need to go out? And what I do is with my intention, I'll call all my cords back to me and just bring, and basically it almost kind of feels like energy is coming towards me again. So if you kind of want to check both ways when it comes to your relationships, you can see if you're courting to other people or if they're courting to you. Okay, so that's a really, really great question. Because definitely if you are practicing, psychic work, you want to make sure that you don't have feelers in someone else's field, inadvertently, that's just kind of hanging out there. So, and usually with your intention, that's good enough. But if you always wanted to double check, then just close your eyes and see, do I have cords going out anywhere? And just blanket statement, I'm recalling any cords back to me that belong to me, okay? And then they'll come right back. So excellent question. Anything else? Anybody else? I love that question. It was really good. Because if not, speak now, forever hold your peace. Anything else you want me to vibrationally check in on, or any other pressing questions regarding reciprocity? This was a really good discussion, guys. So I appreciate you joining. live, and for those also checking in on the replay for this. And you're very, very welcome, Ryan. Really good questions. So otherwise, I will see you again next week. Just to plug this, Jasmine and I will be discussing attachment next week. So this is a really great segue, a really great discussion to have on reciprocity, because attachment is closely related to that. And so we'll be doing this live next week at same time, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So again, so catch that. Jasmine and I will be going live together talking about attachment. Okay. So otherwise, I will see you next time. And thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. Love you. Bye.